Okay, so we're reading from Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Lila, Chapter 1, the beginning of the Sankirtan movement. I offer my respectful obeisances to the two fathers of the Sankirtan movement, whose long arms reach to their knees, and who are splendid like gold, whose large eyes are lotus flowers, who are the maintainers of the worlds, the best of the Brahmins, and the protectors of the Yuga Dharma, the religion of the age, who bring happiness to the people of the world, and who have come to this place because they are very merciful. Yeah, I used to speak on this verse. I would read this verse, and that's as far as we would go, because it's just so deep and so wonderful, and the essence of truth. I'll speak a little bit about this. Also, it's just so worthy to say many things about. So the author begins to share about the form of Sri Krishna Caitanya and Lord Nityananda, the two fathers of the Sankirtan movement. Basically, they started. They're the protectors of the religion, the religious dharma of the age, the religion of the age. The religion of the age is not like the motivated religiosity that many people are into, The religion of the age is basically meditating on the absolute truth. And by doing that, this devotion and this love will eventually awaken in the heart. See, that's really the essence of religion, is to meditate on what is transcendental and what is spiritual, so that this devotion and love can awaken in the heart. Right? This is what purifies our lives. This is what gives us the deepest happiness. This is what gives us all security in life. This is what raises us to the liberated platform. Okay? This is our natural position, is this devotion to awaken in the heart. See? And it awakens by meditating on the object of this devotional awakening. See, and that's the super soul and its manifestations, many manifestations. And the deepest manifestation is Sri Krishna and Radha. And Sri Krishna Caitanya, Mahaprabhu appeared in this world 500 years ago, very enthusiastically meditating on Krishna and teaching everybody by example, that this is the greatest happiness for even God. He came here. He didn't teach anything else. He, like if you think, if there's an incarnation of that supreme consciousness and comes here, and he's only teaching about devotion, how to awaken this love of God, and that's all he spoke about. Only things in relation to the awakening of this devotion and love, either by demonstration or by actual teaching. That's all it was. Again, he was just chanting, meditating on the object. So this object of devotion, and then this love would awaken. So those out there who are wondering, how can I find love? Okay? Well, find the object of love and meditate on that. And the result of that meditation is the awakening of the purest and the deepest love. That liberates the soul and begins to liberate other souls. Also, just by them being in the presence of such a loving devotee. See, they're called devotees now. See, they're the protectors of this Yuga Dharma, of this meditating on the Supreme Absolute Truth, which they distributed through this chanting of the holy names, And they protected the Dharma just by enthusiastically chanting and meditating and relishing what's called devotional mellows. See? This gave the clues to the people in the world and said, "Whoa, wow, maybe we should do this." And they encouraged and inspired so many people to do the same. This is why after he disappeared, gradually, again, people forget. If there's nobody out there demonstrating that this is really wonderful to do and are very enthusiastic about it, people get into other things. The Maya is very strong and just carries people away into things that are worldly, that are external, and they bring their consciousness down to the worldly level again. So therefore, then another enthusiastic devotee has to usually come, just like A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They come and they revive the enthusiasm of the people because by their example. See, like in first chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, one cannot teach devotional service unless they practice it themselves. And it's not just a practice, like you're doing like forced discipline. Ultimately, it becomes a natural, enthusiastic program. It's like you want to do it just naturally, because that's the liberated position. Our soul wants to meditate on its source because it gives the greatest love and the greatest pleasure, spiritual pleasure, not material pleasure, spiritual. See, they who bring happiness to the people of the world. See? Happiness is this chanting. Happiness is themselves. See? They are the highest truth. And out of great mercy, they presented themselves before the world. See? And people who saw them became immediately spiritually advanced because they're seeing with their own eyes the highest truth, which is usually hidden in their own hearts. See? So that's called darshan. You get to see with your own eyes the manifestations of the absolute truth. Anybody saw them once became spiritually advanced. And then their followers realized the value of being in the presence of God, actually, or you could use a different word, the supreme presence, supreme consciousness, embodied in a form, that they wrote these pastimes down, and here we have them now, and we can meditate just by talking about these subjects. See, the religion of the age in Chaitanya Charitamrita is also to broadcast the glories of this eternal truth, and that means you speak about Krishna, speak about Radha, speak about their pastimes, speak about Lord Caitanya especially. Very quickly this devotion will begin to awaken. I've had many people watch the videos and they just start like feeling this ecstatic love awaken in their hearts. Often they wonder, what happened to me? It's all talks about Lord Caitanya. Okay? Those who become attached to Lord Caitanya can naturally liberate the world just by speaking about devotional topics. And I mentioned that yesterday, where Lord Caitanya said to his devotees that came to visit him in Jagannath Puri, he said, I'm just a beggar. I have no money, but I give you my body. You can sell it wherever you want. See, so they were very attached to Lord Caitanya, who was Radha and Krishna combined. So those who are attached, and this doesn't go for only those devotees, anybody, the Lord wants to give his transcendental body to everyone who will just receive it. That's why he's considered the most merciful incarnation. He wants to give himself to everyone who will receive it. How do you receive it? You hear from those devotees who have received the transcendental body of the Lord. The Lord said, I have nothing to give you, devotees, except my body. So now you can sell it anywhere you want. See, those who are attached to Lord Caitanya and the devotees, that's where devotional service resides. See, it resides in these books. It resides in living devotees who are attached to Lord Caitanya. They can distribute the glories of Lord Caitanya. No one else. You can't. This goes far beyond the rules and regulations of the Vedas. There are many people who are practicing very strictly rules and regulations, and they may even be gurus and teachers and Brahmins and all of this. But if they're not transcendentally attached to Lord Caitanya and Nityananda and the devotees and Radha and Krishna, where to the point of spontaneous love, they cannot really distribute this kind of mercy. See, it's all based on transcendental attachment. And there are symptoms. Sometimes the devotees are in external consciousness. Sometimes they're speaking about their beloved object and tears come to the eyes. Sometimes deep laughter. This is the signs of transcendental attachment. Okay. So if we want spontaneous devotional service, we cannot be adverse to these are called devotional mellows, experienced by devotees. You can't have aversion to that. Okay. So this, I think, we'll use this video as the introduction to our Gaur Bhakti Pod initiations. Okay. So a lot of people a lot of devotees, this is actually for the devotees who know something about Lord Caitanya. Okay. This is for those, and it's just like when Prabhupada came to America, people didn't know about Lord Caitanya or Radha and Krishna or how Krishna is God and Lord Chaitanya is all. So he taught people, okay, follow rules and regulations. This is Krishna, this is Lord Caitanya. Read these books, read my books, read all this. So this was the Vaidhi Bhakti phase for most devotees, the majority of devotees. But it's not meant to remain that way, and most devotees, or many devotees, can think that it is. They think, well, this is all it is. Prabhupada is the only acharya that's coming for 10,000 years, and this is what we do. It's only because of their lack of experience on the platform of devotion that they speak like this. And people listen, and they go that course. But ultimately, devotion is the path of devotional service is meant to be the devotees are meant to come to the platform of spontaneous love. Okay. See, how does that happen? Well, once the devotees, it's like the Lord has this pattern, all kind of, and I'll explain it according to the Bhagavatam now. I use this. This insight came in Mayapur last year. Mathura is like considered the abode of regulated devotional service. Mathura and Dwarka, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Okay, so it was oppressed by Kamsa. And that's pretty much the those who are not real devotees yet. They have motives. It's just natural. It's called motivated religiosity. Many people may call themselves devotees and be devoted. They're as sincere as they can be, but this spontaneous love has not awakened their hearts. See, and there's some oppression there, because until this devotion and love awakens in the heart, there's always going to be we can't quite get free. Things are still tough. You'll get a little relief because you're doing regular devotional service like this. But things are still tough. It's not easy. We're still controlled by motivated leaders. Okay? Just like the Brahmins, because we're not transcendental yet, we're striving for that. There can be tricky Brahmins and gurus and all of this stuff, and they're not pure in heart yet either, and they're controlling things, controlling the world, okay? Like controlling religious circles, people in religious circles. You can't get free of that. So there's an oppression there. That was what's going on in Mathura. People were, they have all these, basically liars and cheaters. Yeah, well, I want to get in. It's not a depressing thing. It's just get into this is the challenge and the struggle. Okay? Ultimately, Krishna came from Vrindavan. Now that's the abode of spontaneous devotional service. And what did he do? He came to give mercy to the devotees in Mathura, to elevate those who were not adverse to devotional mellows to the spontaneous platform of devotional service. And that's what he did. So he comes with his family members. And those who were ready and were willing and were slated for this platform of devotional service welcomed Krishna. See, he goes into Mathura and he meets different people. Not everybody was favorable. Okay. There was that washerman. He comes and he says, Krishna says, well, here I am. You ready to give boons, basically? Can you give me this? And he said, nah, it said he associated with Kamsa too much. And therefore he was adverse to Krishna, spontaneous devotional service. See, Krishna and his devotees are the abode of spontaneous devotional service. So he basically couldn't receive Krishna. But others did. And they received this devotional boon. They became deeply attracted to Krishna on the spontaneous platform. Not just regulative devotional service. So that's how it is now. It's the same pattern that happens over and over again. It happened even in the Bible. I'll talk a little bit about that later. We'll talk about it now. It happened in the Bible. No, let's talk about, because this is mainly for devotees. We'll talk about, let's see if I remember it all. Talk about how it started with Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And if you read his books, like Sri Krishna Samhita, he was saying, and other books, his basic books about, and he talks about how things are. He said most of the devotees right now are on the neophyte platform. See, teaching regulative devotional service. Bhakti Siddhanta taught regulative devotional service. Prabhupada taught regulative devotional service. Bhakti Vinod Thakur was a little bit different. He was writing for more the Madhyam devotees because the acharyas generally write for the neophytes because that's what most devotees are on that platform. See? But he was writing books about very deep subjects. And those who are ready, he knew eventually those who are ready will read these things. They will not, they're eager for these things. They won't misunderstand them. That's advancement in devotional service. At the level when this bhakti awakens in the heart, then you can begin to understand the deeper purports of the scriptures. The deep purports. So with Prabhupada, say like he's was teaching about Krishna to the Westerners. Everybody's learned about Krishna. Everybody learned about Lord Caitanya. Okay, where's it go? Where's it going? Is it to stay like that? See, no, it follows the same pattern that Bhagavatam pattern that teaches in these deeper subjects that, first there's this regulative devotional service, then Krishna, spontaneous devotional service from Vrindavan, which Lord Caitanya came to bring. That's the door to Vrindavan, actually. That's That's why we spend a lot of time on Chaitanya Lila here. Okay. So that's going to be happening. It is happening. Okay. Prabhupada came to me in a lucid dream when I was just starting to share about Lord Chaitanya's glories, because that's what I was into. I really loved it. I was from the very day I came to Krishna Caitanya, I loved Chaitanya Lila. It was my life and soul. He came to me when people started to come, and I gave some classes, and like the very first class, he comes, because a lot of strange things, as soon as I started to share publicly, because I was just kind of greedily doing it in the closet, going around India and just like, drinking this nectar myself. But when I started to share publicly, just spontaneously, people were coming. He came. He said, "This is what I want you to do. You do more of this." Came in a lucid dream. I was like, was like almost awake, and it was like so blissful and happy and all this. So that's what we're doing here. People might, so people might wonder, what are you doing this Bhakti Pod initiation thing? Hey, yeah, well, it's already, it's just this. I'm just working under inspiration. This idea came to me just by, so I just do whatever is coming. I just sit and chant. And if an inspirational idea comes, I just take it from the Lord. I just do it, whether people laugh at me, because there are a lot of people going to be laughing. Why not? They're thinking, who is he and all this? You've had all these things happen. And anyway, it is what it is. But I'm just working under inspiration. So what is this Bhakti Pod initiation and all of this stuff? Well, first of all, I've been sharing about Lord Caitanya for many years now. But not really. Well, actually, yeah, very emphatically, but not to this level that's coming now. And people are developing these devotional symptoms just by hearing about Lord Caitanya. That's an initiation. It's like whether like a person comes across as a guru or as a teacher, or the main thing is, if you talk about Lord Caitanya and people start to awaken devotion, well, that's really it, man. That's really the result, and the goal is that to speak about Lord Caitanya, who is the door to Vrindavan and Radha and Krishna Lila, so that devotion will awaken people in their hearts, so they become qualified to understand Radha and Krishna. Radha and Krishna really have to be worshipped with that ras, the devotional ras. And we get that through very deep meditation on the Lila of Lord Caitanya. So I just put it on, now I just put it in clear terms that, okay, we're doing Bhakti, Gauranga Bhakti Pod initiation. So anybody who listens to Gauranga Lila here, if they do it with respect and the eagerness and spiritual greed is there to do it, because people will be whatever it is, they will develop this devotion. How important is it to you? Do you want to experience the pleasures devotees experience of being, this happy-go-lucky and natural, wonderful, secure life, because Lord Caitanya just stays close? You see, and this devotion is so auspicious. It's the most valuable treasure in the whole universe. Do you want that? It's worth. It makes one more rich internally, even though externally maybe their situations are not so great. But internally, the devotee is more rich than Bill Gates, because money is insignificant to that, or the greatest person in this world that is looked at with, like on a high position. Those who have this devotion to Lord Caitanya, it's the greatest treasure, greatest opulence. So for those devotees who are eager and been praying, oh Lord, where, please give me devotee association, please, is there anything more to devotional service than the rules and regulations? I mean, I had one person who came, and he was praying for 25 years to Prabhupada, initiated by Prabhupada. And then this happened. He was able to recognize things. See, it's not easy to recognize spontaneous devotional service. The devotees are unpretentious. They might be a street sweeper on the street, may have no high position. They may be Shudras, but the jewel that they have is this love of God, love for Lord Caitanya. It's like in the Kavi Kanapur's poetry, where he says, the devotees of Lord Caitanya appeared in this world as ordinary, in the guise of ordinary persons. Most of them were in the guise of ordinary persons, bearing the mark, the one unmistakable mark of love for Gauranga. See, they were deeply attached to Lord Caitanya. See, that was their only way that you could recognize them, because some were Brahmins, some were street sweepers, some were tending hogs, some were like Ramananda Roy. He was considered a Sudra. And then there was Pundarik Vijayanidhi, who was like a wealthy person. Then there was Abhiram, who was seeming kind of crazy. He would go around with a whip and distribute devotion to love for Krishna through the whip. Very odd bunch of the followers of Lord Caitanya. Can you recognize them? It's not always easy. What we've seen are sometimes the acharyas who are actually in a very playful, loving mood, and they come often as, for the neophytes, come in a different mood. They come like in the mood of Krishna in Mathura, or Dwarka in the more regulative consciousness, to appear like that. But that's not the mood of Vrindavan or Navadvip or Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Okay? The people who want this bhakti, this Gauranga Pad initiation, they have to learn to appreciate the mood of Navadvip, and that's what we do here. It's very informal, very fun-loving, very, very. And if you don't like this mood, then you basically don't like that Lila, because that's the mood you're going to see here in this everything unpretentious, very informal. And that's how it was with Lord Caitanya and his devotees. It was like that. So his devotees will manifest these kinds of more moods. So, and people can see, those who will be favorable, those who want that, they want a more informal relationship with God. They'll be attracted. But those who want the more formal relationship, which actually the mellows of devotion are dwarfed because of it. See, this doesn't attract the Lord. See, attraction to the Lord is actually, you can experience that, because the Lord is in our hearts. If I'm doing regulative devotional service, my love for God is going to be minimal. And I'll feel it. It will feel the heart is more dry. There might be some juice. There's juice in it. I mean, there's juice doing regulative devotional service. But when spontaneous devotional service manifests, and the Lord says in Chaitanya Charitamrita that that's what pleases me. Okay? That's what controls me. That means basically in our own hearts this love awakens, because that's Krishna. His body is composed of devotional mellows. See, so when those devotional mellows awaken in our hearts, that means we've attained Krishna, a relationship with Krishna. See, that's what he's talking about. That satisfies me. And then simultaneously, you and me as a devotee experience a deeper satisfaction than regulative bhakti. Okay. So, what I taught last year, and this is a good teaching, if you want to wonder so you're not bewildered by, well, who is a devotee? Who has real devotion? Because some people can imitate crying and all these things that devotees do, and they do it for name and fame and to attract a following, but they somehow, they're like actors. But how can you tell the difference between a devotee who is really elevated on a devotional platform? And this is a good, if a person wants to know, because we need to know these things, otherwise we can be cheated. And through this video, you can actually see what I'm talking about. You can use this as to see, is this Gaura Hari Das out to lunch somewhere, or just like totally nuts? And it's very logical. If a person is not qualified to teach this kind of spontaneous devotional service, their realization will reflect it. It will be like either Vaidhi, where there's a cheating and propensity going on there, but their level of realization will reflect that. See? If a person has true devotional mellows, then deeper realizations of the absolute truth will manifest. This deeper mercy, because when this devotion awakens in the heart, then one can understand the deeper purports of the Vedas and speak about them. And if a person is really sincere and intelligent and really looking for the truth and not just bewildered by bad association or too much association with on the Vaidhi level and cannot distinguish, but if you get the mercy, then you can look like that. And that's why this is one important basic teaching, is you want to know where is the deeper devotional service. Well, you see it where the deeper realization is first. See? When bhakti awakens, this is Bhagavatam conclusion, when bhakti awakens, simultaneous true knowledge awakens. Not just knowledge of memorizing scriptures. Anybody can do that. A Brahmin can study the scriptures and memorize verses and sound really nice and know the superficial level of it. But the deep purports, they cannot understand. It's like Vallabhabhata was an example of this. He was an aristocratic Brahmin. And when Lord Caitanya met him, he was quoting all kinds of verses about Krishna consciousness, from Bhagavatam. And the Lord was ecstatic. Oh yeah, just quote. See, but he wasn't an experienced devotee. He was still full of pride. And then when he started to want to share his purports, see, a purport is beyond just quoting the verses. Now you give a purport. Now he showed that he was not qualified as a spontaneous devotee through his purports. Nobody wanted to hear them. He could fool maybe persons who just fooled by external devotional service, like, you're an acharya. He was Vallabhabhata acharya, aristocratic. Oh yeah, let me go hear from you. But the devotees elevated on the platform of devotion wouldn't listen to him, didn't want to, because he was filled with pride, and his purports would actually pollute the devotees. They didn't want to hear these things. See, because he's full of speculation. See, only when this spontaneous devotional love awakens in the heart are the deeper conclusions and purports revealed, and those devotees who speak them, they awaken the hearts, the devotion in the hearts of others, because Krishna's in there and he likes to hear these conclusions that are coming from his devotees. See, the Lord taught this even in his seemingly external pastimes. He taught how it works in the heart. See, Swarup Damodar would examine all the conclusions of any devotee who would come. Because it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, if the Lord would hear conclusions not from devotees that come from devotion, and they were full of speculation from even if you're a Vaidhi Bhakti, a lot of people were claiming to be devotees, even of Lord Caitanya, but they were still on the Vaidhi Bhakti platform, and their conclusions, if they were full of speculations, beyond, if they just went beyond quoting like a parrot and then started to give their inexperienced conclusions with speculation, the Lord would get angry. He didn't want to hear it. So they had to pass through Swarup Damodar. So this is really the standard of how to tell. And if one is intelligent and one has really been praying, then you'll be able to recognize the devotees who are elevated to the spontaneous platform, because their conclusions will be very deep. Now, you'll either not understand them, or you'll be like at the mercy to understand them, or even if you don't understand those conclusions coming from such devotees, you'll feel very happy and liberated just hearing them. It's kind of like the other pastimes. See, Chaitanya Lila is the path that leads to Vrindavan. And only those attached to Lord Caitanya can really teach it. They understand these conclusions by the grace of Lord Caitanya and their attachment to Lord Caitanya. This Prabhupada told me, you teach Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Lila. See? Prabhupada will tell anybody who is attached to Lord Caitanya to teach that Lila, especially now, because everybody knows about Krishna. Everybody, well, not everybody, but so many millions of devotees know that Krishna is God. The Lord Caitanya is also the Lord. They really, want to worship. Yet, if devotional love is not awakened in their heart, the Lord will send the devotees who have that love, and that will be the final deliverance. That will deliver people, and once you make it to the spontaneous platform, then all you'll need to do is just to meditate on the Lila and chant its pastimes and be happy and make millions of people happy also, who are also waiting to wake up to that platform. It's that simple. It's not a big complicated thing, It's only complicated when you're still in the mind, because you haven't transcended the mental platform through the awakening of devotion. And then you speculate, and then you mislead so many other people. What Jesus told the Pharisees, it was the same idea. See, Moses came with the law. Okay, this is the law. It comes from God. Follow principles, the regulative principles, very strictly. If you don't, we'll cut your head off or put you to the sword, all this stuff, Then Jesus comes along. See? Some were adverse to Jesus. See, Jesus was a spontaneous devotee, obviously. Comes in this moody, sane sayings that are so deep that nobody can understand them practically, but it liberates people. That's the style. He came to bring this love. He talked to, he demonstrated love of God. See, those who became attached to Jesus, they got the awakening of this devotion to some extent. At least the forgiveness of sins, this, liberation. Many of the Pharisees, see, they were attached to this regulative style of bhakti, because it's there's bhakti there. It's the bhakti of following God's laws, Some principles. They were following that, but they were too attached to that. They weren't open to what Jesus taught, because the kingdom of God on the spontaneous level is through the devotee. He said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. No one comes to the Father except through me. Well, that's the sectarian purport that been interpolated there. No. The devotee who has devotion, a devotional relationship with God, is the door. Always been the door. Always will be the door. You read these books, these devotional books, they're the door to a relationship with Lord Caitanya. Vrindavan Das Thakur is the door. Well, can you get it through reading the book? If you can't, then the Lord will send a living devotee filled with the mellows of devotion and these deep purports, which will cleanse the mind of all the speculation you get even from gurus and teachers on the Vaidhi Bhakti platform. But they don't know these deep purports. They're like Valabhabatas walking around. There's some pride there. There's all of this. Who's going to clear it off? Well, you have to meet a devotee elevated to the devotional platform and hear their purports. It cleanses all that stuff out of the mind. Very quickly, devotion will awaken. That's why I'm speaking about these things first. Preliminaries. This is the path. You got to understand the teachings of Lord Caitanya, the deep purports of his pastimes, because they lead to Vrindavan, Moot. The Vrindavan consciousness, and you can only worship in Vrindavan with the ras, devotional mellows. So yeah, it's again, you see how deep this one. I can read this tomorrow and speak another, a whole class on it. It's just so beautiful. One devotional fruit is worth millions of. There's not one treasure in the material universe worth it. This one devotional fruit coming from the realization of Vrindavan Das Thakur is invaluable. Great treasure. Can you appreciate it? Most can't. Do you want to appreciate it? Well, you just have to hang out with devotees and hear from devotees who do appreciate such nectar. Then it is possible. Otherwise, impossible, practically. Yeah. Unless from another life, in your last life, you got the mercy somehow or other of a devotee, and then you come into this life and you read these books and they're like treasures to you, and your heart awakens. Okay, you brought forth from your last life. It's just like if you make it to the platform of devotion now, in your next life, were you going to start again through Vaidhi Bhakti? No, there's no loss or diminution. You come right to a devotional scripture and the Bhakti just awakens. Ancient mercy, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Contemporary mercy, according to him, also in his, I think, a Madhurya Kandambini, or one of those books he wrote, nice books, is the devotee in this time. This is the ancient mercy. It's all in the books. Can you pick it up? If not, then regular classes in Srimad Bhagavatam, and by service to the devotees, all that's troublesome to the heart is purified. See, regular classes in Bhagavatam means you hear from a devotee who is self-realized. Purifies all that contamination that we pick up from even unrealized teachers, unrealized gurus. It's just like the path is in the Bhagavatam. Can you recognize it? Can you recognize the deeper purport of the Bali Maharaj pastime? Can you recognize he had to even give up association with his spiritual master, Sukracharya? Sukracharya was a Brahmin only. It even talks about it. This is the deeper purport. He was inexperienced. He could not recognize the spontaneous devotees. This was Jesus, his beef with the Pharisees. You can't recognize the spontaneous devotee. It was him. You can't recognize or appreciate the teaching because you're full of motives. You still want name and fame and all this. Well, how many gurus still want that? Well, Sukracharya, he looked at Vamana Dev and said, he's going to take everything away from you. Don't go, give it away. Follow my order. See, and so Bali Maharaj was instructed by the pure devotee, his grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, and was able to recognize that because of that pure instruction coming from a pure devotee, Prahlad Maharaj could look at Sukracharya and see he was full of motives, and said, "Well, no, I can't honor your instruction. I'm following Prahlad Maharaj's lead, and I can recognize that Vamanadev is giving the proper order, proper instructions now, and you're adverse to following that. Therefore, I can't follow your order anymore." See, you see how the Bhagavatam is screaming the deeper purports of how one attains spontaneous devotional service over and over again. It's in the pastime of the wives of the Brahmins. Oh, this is great. The wives of the Brahmins even had to pass the test. Over and over. I'm going to just spend the time on these examples, because they're good, they're really wonderful. You want to know the path? Well, this is the path. The examples will point them out. The wives of the Brahmins had to get over their husbands' instructions. See, they're Brahmins. But they were adverse to the devotees on the spontaneous level. They would not even give a morsel of food to the cowherd boys. Because, why? You're just little cowherd boys. Who are you? We're Brahmins doing these great Vedic sacrifices. So those cowherd boys were told by Krishna, inspired by Krishna, really, you go and you ask the wives. See, the wives were very attracted, and the husband said, "Oh, you don't give anything to them, you stay at home and all this." They wouldn't even listen to them. He said, no, we're not listening to you because you're adverse to those who are connected to spontaneous devotion, these cowherd boys. See? Therefore, we don't listen to you anymore. So they ran after the cowherd boys and went and saw Krishna. See? They're the door. I'm the way, the life, and the truth. No one comes unto the Father but by me. The spontaneous devotees are the door to devotion, especially when they're teaching that. See? Prabhupada was teaching, he's the door. You got to go through regulative devotional service and learning about Krishna. But people, this is another thing, the regulative devotees don't understand the deeper purports. They think, well, Prabhupada is the Acharya for the next 10,000 years, right? You hear that? Is this really a true deeper conception? It's not what Lord Caitanya taught. This is a conception for those in Vaidhi Bhakti may have, till they know better. But Lord Caitanya taught differently. Vallabhabhata came to understand devotional service, but he's still full of pride, unexperienced conclusions. And Lord Caitanya cut his pride down and said, "Oh, you want to know about devotional service? You go to the devotees like I did." Showed by example. "Oh, you want to know about the philosophical theses? Go to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He'll teach you about that. That's what he is empowered to teach. That is what Krishna wants him to teach. Oh, you want to go to devotional mellows? You want to know, first of all, knowledge of devotional mellows? You go to this devotee. He is empowered by Krishna to teach that. Oh, you want to see devotional mellows? Oh, you go to Swarup Damodar. That's where I learned them. I saw them on his person, on his body. He was a manifestation of them. He is empowered. They're all pure devotees, all of them. They are all empowered to teach a certain aspect of Krishna consciousness. You think it's going to be any different? Why is Lord Caitanya teaching this Lila like this? Why, is he just doing it for fun only? Well, he did it for fun. It was enjoyable. But also, there's the teaching. You'll see. Prabhupada wrote the teachings of Lord Caitanya. You see, what we're giving here is also the teachings of Lord Caitanya. The deeper ones were for those who are ready for that. To know now, okay, you know Lord Caitanya is the Lord and all this. Now, you have to walk through this door. The door. Can you see how the Lord was teaching this? and why he was teaching this, and so you could be open now that Prabhupada he is the Acharya for the next 10,000. He'll always be the Acharya. He's an Acharya forever. He's a pure devotee. Can you recognize the next Acharya? See, and you don't have to get onto this whole head trip. What is an Acharya? Acharya means an example of what they're teaching. Is the Acharya of devotion. Can you recognize an Acharya devotion? Can you become one? So we all have to get this. And all it is, the Lord Caitanya wants to make so many Acharyas. He wants to make millions. There are millions of potential Acharyas ready to be. It's like what Jesus said. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few right now. Same thing now. Harvest is plentiful. There are many people that are going to wake up to spontaneous devotional service shortly and become like Acharyas. And if you think, oh, this is such a great... It's not as difficult as people think. All you have to do is become attached to Lord Caitanya, and you just do that through his devotees who have devotion. And once this devotion awakens in your heart, you become an eternal associate of the Lord. That's simple. And you think, oh, it's not that simple. Yeah, it's that simple. And that's why in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says there are two types of pure devotees. One is the neophyte, and the other is the eternally liberated associate. Okay. When this devotion awakens, then very quickly all the contamination begins to just burn off. You become an advanced devotee just by that devotion awakening. This doesn't mean you're finished. I mean, you still got to, keep hearing and chanting, remembering, and let that, whatever subtle contamination is there will burn off more and more and more. There's a lot of subtle stuff, going on there. It's even in the example. You can become qualified to be in Krishna's pastimes and still have some subtle contamination. People say, that's not true. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that's an inexperienced devotee who'll talk like that. But that's not what Bhagavatam says. Shukadev Goswami, he was teaching Maharaj Parikshit, and he said, in this union and separation, when you start to feel the symptoms of this union with Krishna, this is the effective stage of devotional service. Tears come to the eyes, you're feeling, it's so nice to be with Krishna, to hear his pastimes. Tears sometimes come to the eyes of such devotees. Heart melts, sometimes laughter comes. This is qualification for Krishna Lila. Doesn't mean every subtle contamination is finished. It even says, so Shukadev Goswami said, those who are qualified, those persons qualified to become gopis even, cowherd boys, gopis, whatever it was, the qualification of this is ecstatic devotional service. So there they go to Bhumi Lila, the Bhumi Lila, the pastimes of the Lord on the earth. And in their union and separation times, it would burn off whatever contaminations of piety or impiety. Material piety and material impiety would burn off in that exchanges. Loving exchanges between God and themselves. Okay, this is conclusion, 10th canto. I'm giving a class now. Can it wait? Okay, I'll be there short. I don't think too long. Isn't it interesting? See? So a lot of people say, they misunderstand things. They can't see the deeper purport, so you have to hear from devotees. Sometimes even the acharyas, they teach in a very basic way because people are not, unless you're ready to understand these deeper, subtler conclusions, they speak in a general way. Like I was reading, Prabhupada said, one must be completely, free of all material contamination before these devotion will away and all of this. Yet, it's just a general idea, but that's why I point out the deeper conclusions here. These are for those devotees who are ready. See? Even the regular, it says that devotion will awaken when the material contamination is almost completely purified. See, this is Bhagavatam. See, it says it doesn't say completely, almost to nil, and it begins to awaken. That's the mercy. See? And the extraordinary mercy of Lord Caitanya is this devotion is awakening faster than that when you meet the devotees. Because even if you're filled with all kinds of contaminations, if you're just favorable to the devotees, this devotion can awaken before you're even at that level of qualification. This is the amazing mercy of Lord Caitanya's appearance and those who are attached to him. You don't have to go through a big, rigid, long program. All you have to do is be favorable to his devotees and associate with them closely. And then this will awaken. The people just watch the videos, and if they're favorable to the video even, watching the video, and they really appreciate it, devotion often awakens in their hearts. I had one lady, she was watching the videos, and this devotion just kept awakening. She didn't quite know what it was, and I was just starting to teach, and I didn't know, what's really going on deeply until, gradually all these things come clear, She's writing me back on YouTube. I feel all this love awakening, all this love. And then one day, after a couple of weeks or something, she went silent. All of a sudden, I didn't get any notes. Okay? So what happened was she got all of this love and this union. This is union. When love awakens for the Lord, now you're in union. She got a lot of this union with God awakening from hearing the pastimes of Lord Caitanya. And then one day, silent for about a week. Then she writes back, and she says, I started to feel this feeling. The world looked very empty to me. See? The truth is, the world is very empty. It's void and empty. That was the experience of Vrindavan devotees. Because they're feeling all this union, then there's this separation mode. And all they can think about is Krishna. Well, people need to be instructed in this. So she got a little afraid. She thought, I don't know, the world is empty. So she went to a psychologist. And luckily, God, Krishna, sent her to the right one, because she told her woes about how she felt all this love and everything. Now the world is looking empty. And so she didn't come to me. She should have came to me. I could have straightened her out. But anyway, she went that way. And she wrote me about this. So she goes to the psychologist and says, I don't know why the world is looking like this. And I was feeling all this love and all this. The psychologist was somehow educated in this kind of thing. And she says, these are the symptoms of a person being freed from the world, worldly consciousness. It starts to be like this. You feel this new love awakening. It's very pure, and it starts to reveal the truth about the world. It's not an attractive place. It's just a shell. The true reality is this devotion. It reveals the deepest truth. So she was instructed like this somewhat. Maybe interjecting a little bit, but basically, so she came to me and said, I didn't know. See? This is like in the past time where Lord Caitanya transmitted the potency. through just this fisherman touched him when he's laying in the sea in ecstasy. The fisherman just touched him, and this potency entered his heart. See, that's that bhakti awakening his heart. And he started to cry and laugh and feel these ecstatic symptoms. And he got afraid. He thought a ghost entered him. He had nobody to instruct him. Then he met, luckily, Swarup Damodar, who instructed him in the mellows and devotion, and this was a very fortunate thing for him to happen. See? So just watching the videos, if you're hearing from those persons who like Lord Caitanya and are speaking about Lord Caitanya and his glories and these kinds of conclusions, this devotion can be transmitted into your heart if you accept them. I mean, if you're adverse to these conclusions, if you like the speculation from those who are not experiencing devotion, then you will just go away. This is, see? And I'll be very happy, just like Krishna Das Kaviraj, because I don't want a disturbance here so much. It's what we're speaking about here is the same kind of thing that Krishna Das Kaviraj was speaking about in his book, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very deep conclusions. And he said the devotees will appreciate these things, but the non-devotees won't. Those who are devoid of devotion, those who are adverse to devotional mellows. Okay? And they'll go away. They will say, what is this? They go away. And he said, I can't be happier. See, you don't want to cause offense. You don't want all this controversy and all of this. Too much of that. See? But those who the Lord inspires in the heart, they'll come to such devotees and associate and hear and all of this and have the devotion awaken. See? That's how it's passed on. I got my orders from Prabhupada to do this, so. He ordered me, you do this. Yeah. So even though it's slow going, because generally, this not so many people are interested or ready, at least in the beginning, but the Lord is getting everybody, the corn is ripening, and soon many people will awaken to spontaneous devotional service. As long as they're favorable to it, favorable to those devotees. Otherwise you can't get it. You'll just stay at the regulative platform. So that's why we're trying to share and help people understand how to know when that path is before one. Okay, so this is the first Bhakti Pod, not Bhakti, Sri Krishna Caitanya Bhakti Pod initiation. If you get through this one, just keep listening. And very shortly, if it hasn't already in this video, because it could happen at any second, in this video, this kind of devotion and attachment to the Lord will awaken. So you just keep. If this is interesting to you, the Lord will tell you in the heart. Okay, well, we're going to end here. Thank you very much. Stay tuned to our next broadcast. All glories to all the great devotees of the Lord, like Vrindavan Das Thakur and Krishna Das Kaviraj, Ramananda Roy, and the current acharyas like A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and all the great devotees who are filled with the glory, with bhakti, and are propagating the holy name all over the world. Have a wonderful day. Until our next meeting. I'm looking forward to it already. Okay. Mm-hmm. Good morning. of this Yuga Dharma, of this meditating on the Supreme Absolute Truth, which they distributed through this chanting of the holy names. And they protected the Dharma by enthusiastically chanting and meditating and relishing what's called devotional mellows. Okay? This gave the clues to the people in the world and said, "Whoa, wow, maybe